Hello, everyone. We're back on our third stop on our world tour of all the continents on Earth. We are gathering experts from all around the world to talk about interspecies communication and expand our own universes. And this is part of the Speak Good Human 7-day interspecies communication practice challenge. It's a global tour and introduction to lots of different perspectives on interspecies communication, and it's designed to expand your world from just what you're learning right now, which is animal communication, and just so you know that it's connected to so much more than just speaking with animals. It's really connecting with everything else on Earth in a much different way than many of us have thought before. So that's what each of these 7 videos are about, helping you expand your perspectives. And today, I'm excited to introduce Akshaya Kawle, who is a wonderful animal communicator, nature communicator, and teacher in India, Mumbai. And she's going to be talking about secrets to communicating with your own animals, the companion animals in your life, because that is where many of us really want to be. That's why we got into this field. That's why we want to learn it. And that's what's most important to us, is to have that relationship with our own animals, understand them better, deepen the ties between us, and just have a much better relationship than we ever thought possible. And so this is near and dear to her heart and mine as well. So today we are going to speak with her, and I'm going to bring her on right now. Here we go, Akshaya. Hello.
Hi, hello.
Welcome. It's so great to
Thank
have
you
you
so
here.
much. Thank you.
And
I'm so glad to be here, and I feel so privileged to be a part of this entire series.
yeah, I'm very thrilled to have you here. This topic is perfect. I know it's very important to you as well, and
Yes,
to a lot of your students. And
absolutely.
it's really a universal theme, that communicating with your own animals, whether it's your dog, your cat, your horse, your chicken, whatever it is, it's enough already to just live with our animals. That's great, but to deepen, I know that a lot of things that I hear when people finally talk with their animals, they're able to listen and hear what they have to say. A lot of the comments are from the animals. Finally, you finally are listening, and they're
Yes,
thrilled that they can finally communicate on a much different level. I don't think they hold
absolutely.
resentments that when they can't, they just keep hoping, they keep trying. They're always talking to us, whether we hear them or can understand them or not.
Yes.
But is that your experience as well? Is that
Absolutely. Like a lot of people, I also started my animal communication journey for my own animals because I had 5 animals back then in 2015, and
okay?
they were all aging. They were all 8 and 9 years old.
Oh,
And like many people I know, I came across a video by Anna Breitenbach, and she was talking to Spirit. And that's where my communication journey began as well. And I got so thrilled with that video that I intuitively started speaking to my own dogs. And I was married, and my dogs were at my mother's house. And I would call up my mother and get validations from her. And that's how my entire journey has started. So for me, as I was telling you even earlier, this topic is very close to my heart because never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be a professional animal communicator. My honest intention was only to understand my own animals and to see what I could do for them to make their life better. And in turn, they have made my life so much better that now I feel I was such a fool to think that I could help them. It was the other way around. They were calling out to me to help me become a better version of myself.
yeah. That always surprises me. Whenever I talk to an animal and you get such wisdom from them, and you think, how in the world do they know this stuff? it's amazing that you can't live without that after you know about it. You just,
Absolutely, absolutely. I
yeah,
think we also overuse it. We take it for granted that for everything else that we need help, we can just run straight to them and ask them, okay, what do you think I should be doing now?
yeah. Well, for all the people out there who are just beginning this journey, let's say that you would like to learn this, it's part of your goals, or maybe you've just started, or you've been trying to learn and you're making progress. Let's just state that anybody can talk to their animals. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. And I believe that those who are in touch with animals, be it their companion animals at home or in countries like India, where we have a lot of community animals as well, and we have a lot of feeders here who feed about 400 animals every day. So we already have this connect with nature and animals around us. It is innate in us. It's just that with us humans, as we grow older and we've taught to live in a certain way and have certain belief systems, the whole free flow of the transference of our thoughts or the free flow of information is not accepted by the conscious side of our mind because it doesn't fit into the logical framework of what we have been taught to believe. And that's where I feel our conscious mind starts creating those blocks by saying that, no, this isn't possible. And yet the subconscious keeps communicating and we are all engaging in it. In fact, even in my workshops, I say this that you're not going to learn anything new. You're only going to relearn something that you have been innately doing so far. The only thing that the workshop helps with is, of course, becoming more consciously aware of it. So now that you know whatever you're receiving is from the animal and not just, as we say, made up or our own imagination.
Yeah. I think you're right. It really starts with awareness that we already can do this and that it's possible. And if we are interested in learning, we will learn it. We may not learn it in the same way everybody else does. We may not
Yes.
be on the same timeline. You know, some people pick it up very quickly, and some people it takes longer just because they're working through their own blocks or whatever. But everybody out there, if you are just starting, say to yourself, I want to be an animal communicator. I will be an animal communicator. It's possible. Everybody else can do it, and so can I. And that's really the truth.
Yes. Let's begin with saying I am an animal
Yes,
communicator
I
because we
am.
all already are.
Yeah,
And all we need to do is just give them the respect of being those sentient beings that they are. And I think once we give them that respect of being an equal to us, we take away our position of being a pet parent, of being a feeder, of being a rescuer. That's where we put ourselves and them at the same level, and hence the respect just flows through very naturally. The minute, and I feel the words that we use here are extremely important. If we are going to keep talking to them like they're babies, there are babies, oh my god,
right.
so cute, and this and that, then in our mind we never accept the kind of wisdom they are able to give us, because by our words we are already kind of negating that. And yes, it is, they are our babies by all means, and yet there should be times where we need to give them the respect that we would give another adult being, so that we can have those adult deep connections with them.
That is so true. Just they're companion animals. They are living with us and sharing our lives, but and in some ways we need to be their guardians because we live in a human world and they don't understand everything that humanity is about. But in many other ways, we would be best to listen to their wisdom because we are living in a world that we don't understand half the time also, and they understand more.
Yes. And I feel we are living in their world more than they are living in ours,
Probably.
because the entirety of nature is so cohesive, and they have such a beautiful system and so many commonalities that we kind of have to struggle to fit into. And when I say we, it's more to do with us urban humans rather than the indigenous one, because they live as a part of that ecosystem. But for us, I think they are the bridges between us and our natural connect to nature.
Yes, I think you're right. So let's say, so we established that I am an animal communicator. We can do that.
Yes.
The problem comes up that we are so close to our companion animals. We've lived with them for however long, and we know them by by their behavior, by their personality, their characteristics, by our history together. We know them really well that way. And taking this to a whole new level by actually hearing them or feeling what they feel, sometimes that seems to clash with what we already know. And so I think that's part of why some of the blocks come up, and people have issues connecting with their own animals.
Yes.
Have you found that when people are starting to learn, it might be easier for them to talk with somebody else's animal rather than their own?
Yes. So let me divide this question into two parts. Let's first talk about the whole concept of connecting with our animals and receiving information. So when we say that we are feeling blocked with our own animals, it will usually happen when we are asking them the big questions, the important questions. Right. Oh, you're unwell, what do you want? Or if I have to choose between two treatments, which treatment should I choose? But if it's something very simple as, how was your day today? We may not usually get those blocks because we are not putting ourselves into the pressure of getting information which is vital and which is very consequential to the circumstances that we are in that right now, right? So what I always tell my learners who come to me to attend my workshop is, begin with the basics. Begin with speaking to your animals like you would speak to your human companions at home. So when I speak to my husband, they are not always the most important conversations. They are conversations that we can laugh about, we can share about how we are feeling, or how our day was. Begin with those simple, small conversations. Ensure you receive an answer. Now here, even if we receive an answer which we may think we already know, it's all right. It's not going to put us into a lot of pressure. But when we begin practicing like this, and when that confidence builds up that, yes, I'm receiving an answer from my animal, then finally, when a time comes when we have to ask those important burning questions to them, we don't doubt the information that we receive because we've already done the part where we need to be at that space where we can ask those questions. What happens usually in my experience with my own, with the communicators who come to learn with me, is that they want to ask the big questions on day one.
Right.
And I don't think they don't receive those answers. They genuinely do receive honest answers from their animals. It just becomes difficult for them to accept it because they've not done the easy part of it yet. They are just jumping onto the difficult part of it. So it's like learning anything in life. Unless we learn ABC, we are not going to be able to construct sentences. I may attend zillion courses of learning conversational French, but unless I begin with basic je m'appelle Akshaya, I am not going to be able to talk to anyone in French the way people in France speak it. So to get the fluency, to get the enunciations, to get the pronunciations right, to get the flow right, I need to speak in the language. And when I need to speak in the language, it needs to begin with the basics, which is where I feel most people struggle because they don't do the basics. They don't look at it as something that we need to do every day. It's very need based. Okay, I need to know this from my animal, then I'm going to ask. But other than that, there are no conversations that happen. And that's where I feel most people may falter because they have those self-doubts.
Yeah, that is such a great point. I think, and I'm positive you're right about that. I think the first step would be to just start talking with your animals all the time, just like they were another person in the room, which you would talk to all the time. Yes. And it could be out loud or it could be in your head.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I even do it if I'm out on a walk and I talk to a squirrel or a bird or a dog who's passing by. Just even if I can't hear anything back, it's just practice with everything around you.
And I would like to share a tip with our audience here that if you can't hear anything back initially, because that may happen, again, our conscious mind wants to create an obstacle or block because it doesn't accept this exists. I do this in my workshops where I play this quick game of word association. So, for example, if I say a word, you tell me the first thing that comes to you.
Oh,
It
yeah.
may or may not even be related to what I'm saying, but just say something. And this is what we need to follow even with our animals, and especially when we are having casual conversations. Say if I'm going in the room inside and my dog is sitting out, and if I tell him, okay, I'm just going in and coming, are you going to be okay? Say that okay in your head. Okay, I'll be okay instantly. And this is not going to put us in stress again, because it's not such a big deal, right? It's even if he's not okay and if he barks, you can come out immediately or just right in the next room. And this is how you start getting answers. I always urge communicators that don't stay, just don't be okay with not having answers. Whether you're right or wrong is another thing altogether. But to check whether you're right or wrong, it's essential that you have an answer first. So
Yeah.
make sure you have an answer. Then it may sound like you're guessing, it may be your own imagination. You could even imagine being the animal and think what the animal may have to say. It doesn't matter how you get an answer as long as you get an answer, because only then are you going to be able to verify whether it's right or wrong.
That is a great exercise and a really good point, because if you didn't get an answer, you would immediately start worrying about things and thinking that you're broken or it's not working for you, or all sorts of things start building up and blocking the whole experience for the next time. Next time you'll worry, well, am I going to get something this time? But you're right. If you just have an answer, whether you actually hear it or you make it up or you think that's what they're going to say, start there, and then your mind gets put at ease and calms down, and you're more receptive to what actually is coming through.
So this is an exercise I would like to tell all the audience here, that from this moment on, have casual conversations with your animals and get an answer. That is the most important thing. Then you can go ahead and check whether you're right or wrong. That's the next step. But unless you have an answer, you will not be able to verify what you're receiving. So that is where we can flex our intuitive muscle to ensure that we receive information.
Right. And do you recommend just sticking to the simple topics like you said, or anything is fine to talk about?
In my experience, anything is fine to talk about. However, if you're just starting out, just enjoy communicating.
Okay.
Because the minute you're talking about important things, our focus shifts from the joy of transferring that knowledge,
Right.
from that there to being right about it or to getting accurate information. So when you're just starting out, just feel the joy of communicating without putting yourself in a spot where you focus more on the validation rather than the communication.
Okay, that's a great point. So would the next step then to take that to another level is to start getting validation, and
Yes.
but you can't really do that with your own animal, can you?
You can, if you just go back to your animal and ask them for a validation.
Oh, okay.
So
I
I
think
feel that
people are afraid to sometimes they hear something from the animal and they're afraid to go back and check or to re-ask the question because they're afraid they didn't really hear it or that they got it wrong. But you're right. Go back and ask. It's a conversation.
yes, and that is what we would do with each other. If I have misunderstood something, if I've interpreted something, because as communicators, we are a medium. We don't interpret things. We just receive as they send it to us. So if there's any confusion as to what we are receiving, if we have received it correctly or not, go back to the animal and ask that this is what I've received. Is it really what you have sent me, or is it my own projection? And in that instant, you will know whether it's yours or whether it's the animal's.
And if they don't hear anything, then they.
So again, go back to basics. Either guess or imagine or make up an answer, because getting an answer is the key. And once you start practicing a bit, you will learn to have tangible difference between what is your own and what is coming from the animal.
Okay.
In my personal experience, whatever comes to you instantly is what the animal is sharing with you. The minute you pause to think and put logic into it, that's where we start playing around with the authenticity of the information. So no matter how silly it may sound, or no matter how unbelievable it is, the first thing that comes to us is the answer from the animal. And this again, you can go back, you can play the you can play the game of word association,
Yeah.
and in that, the way you get your answer is exactly the way you will get an answer from the animal as well. So you can just keep practicing this together, and that's how you'll know where your fine line between your own thoughts and the receiving information from the animal lies.
That's I think it's right on with that, and I love the everybody knows how to do the word association game. It's a really simple way of just bypassing all the thoughts in your head and just what's the first thing. It's almost like an instinct.
Yes, yes. And that's how we receive information from animals and nature around us. It's just that instinct. A few other things that may help are also deciding, setting your intention as to what you want your tangible difference to be. So, for a lot of people, if they are visual, they can just set an intention and request the animal to send them a visual so that they know it's coming from the animal and it's not my own. Or for some who is claircognizant, it could just be a feeling. So this will take a little practice because we need to understand where our dominant sense is. But
Okay.
even just setting that intention and requesting the animal to help you receive, not help us validate, but help us receive, will really break those blocks that we face with our own animals.
All right. So, okay. So you're often like if I speak to my dog, it's sort of there's an expectation when you speak to somebody that they'll react physically in the way that
Yes.
we're used to with humans, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it doesn't look like the dog is listening or even knows that you're talking to her or him.
Yes.
So what kind of, is that what you're saying when you're looking for validation from the animal?
Yes, yes, yes.
So
That
what
is
would
what I'm saying. That instead of looking for physical validations, you tell the animal how you would like to receive the message, so that you know it's not your own and it's coming from the animal.
Okay. So can you give us an example?
Sure. So, for example, if I'm visual and if I'm asking an animal, if I want to know from my own dog, what would he like to eat today, I would request him to send me a visual of it instead of sending it to me in any other sense. So that then, because I've decided to myself that if it is a visual, then I know it's from my animal, then I can get my own confirmation that it's not my own thought, it is in fact coming from the animal.
Okay. So let's say that somebody says, okay, do exactly what you just said. Send me a visual of what you would like to eat. And they don't get that visual. Do you recommend then trying something else? Give it, because it may be your own issue. You may not have a strength in that area, but maybe it's
Yes.
okay.
Yes, sure. So the first thing that I said even initially is that practice with the word association activity. Once you get better at that and once you understand what your dominant sense is, then you can try this out.
Okay. Oh, okay. So do you have any tips on how they can find out what their dominant sense is?
Yes, of course. So once they do the word association activity, the
Okay.
way the answer comes to them, the maximum way in which the answers are coming to them will become their dominant sense. So if I'm saying 10 words, say for example, I begin with animals, dogs, cats, trees, every time you hear the word, the first thing that comes to your mind and in the form that it comes becomes their dominant sense.
Okay. So you might, if you said tree, somebody might see the word
Yes.
tree. Somebody
Yes.
might picture a tree.
Yes.
Somebody might feel.
Get the fragrance of being under a tree. Someone might feel being under a tree, while someone may just know that, okay, she's talking about the tree, so that's a tree.
Okay. Yeah, so that is a great way because that's how your mind works. That's how
Yes. And a lot of people, I feel, fixate on dominant senses. They feel that, oh, because I'm visual, then they feel I'm only going to receive visuals. So we need to remember that nature speaks to us in a language that we understand. So unless and until we accept this, we will never be able to receive messages as they're coming through. You may be a visual person, but when you're speaking to an animal, you will most definitely receive messages from all your senses. So you just have to be open to that and not just focus only on the visuals coming through.
Yeah, I think that is one of the stumbling blocks, as we get set in our minds how we're going to be experiencing these things, and we ignore everything else. So just being open to it all.
Yeah.
And
I want to share my own block here that I had faced. So for me also, I used to focus. I used to feel like, there's going to be a eureka moment where something will just come up in front of my eyes, or I'll feel a certain way. And as I started practicing, I realized that it's not for me. It is such an innate ability that it's rather easy. And I feel we as humans don't like to accept things that come to us easily. We want to put in struggle in it. We want to make it a big thing for us. And that's when I realized the more you make it casual, the more you make it something that's so naturally a part of you, the easier it gets for you. At least for me, that has been the case. The more I put restrictions to myself, that okay, I'm going to sit down this time, this place, communicate only like this, and I need to be completely focused, and I don't want disturbances around me, the further away I felt myself getting from this practice, because I never found the time to do it. Then I realized, no, if I really want to do it, I need to make it an integral part. I need to assimilate it. I need to integrate it in my everyday life.
yeah.
That's what it has become now, that I just keep talking. I mean, if someone has to hear me, they'll feel, who is she talking to? There's no one at her house other than a dog. But I do keep talking, and I talk verbally, and I do get replies. So that is something that we need to understand, that there may not necessarily be a eureka moment for everybody. And that's all right. Not everybody goes through that phase where, oh my God, I saw this. Not necessary. You can just look at it as writing an essay. This is a very common exercise I give my students, that write an essay on your own animal. When I tell them write an essay like we did in school with an introduction, body, conclusion, they write so beautifully. And then the minute I tell them, okay, now communicate with them, they can't think of anything.
I've seen that happen too. You kind of get stumped. What do I say? But like you said, start integrating it in your normal life. You don't have to be not right now. It can be all the time, and then
yes,
you don't have that pressure to just perform at a certain time. But another thing that I always come across, I've had the conversations I have with animals often have a lot of humor and lightheartedness in them.
Yes,
that comes from the animal, and it's hard to believe that they would be that way at first, but when you talk with so many animals and they are that way, then you start believing they don't take it as seriously as we do.
No, they don't. I think that's something that they teach us to be. Just be. That's all. There's nothing else. I remember yesterday's live, she was talking about the tree saying, we don't have days, we just be.
Right.
There are no good days and bad days, and it's just like that with animals. And I want to share a story. So when I started out and I was speaking to my own dog, and I was into that zone of wanting to get physical validation, so he was sleeping sleeping beside me, and I was talking to him, and I was telling him, okay, Tango, if you can hear me, do something, wag your tail or look at me, or at least move a little so I know you're receiving my message. And this fellow just laid there like a dead log. No movement. I couldn't even see him breathe. And I'm like, what is happening? Am I talking to him? Am I not talking to him? And I had another friend of mine who was doing the course with me, and I requested her, would you please speak to him? He told her that if she wants to do this so that she can boost her ego by getting validations from me, I'm not going to be a part of her journey, because that's not why you're doing this. If she can just in her own self be agree to the fact that we are talking without me providing physical validation, that's when I'm going to support her. So I apologized to him. I said, I'm really sorry. I will not do it henceforth. And I didn't. I never asked him to physically validate. However, I saw a beautiful shift in our relationship, because after that, each time I have spoken to him, his ears just go back, And it's so evident that my family members notices, and every time they see it, they ask me, "Are you talking to him?" Because his ears have just gone back as if you are talking to each other. I say, "Yes, yes, we are talking to each other." So
Oh,
they will go over and beyond to ensure that we are on the right path. We just have to allow them to do so, and we can do that only when we start communicating with them every day. So just keep talking to them as much as we talk to humans. Like when you enter the room, just ask your dog or cat what they are doing, or if you have a choice of food, ask them, would you like to eat this or that? And small things can really, which seem inconsequential at that point, really help in strengthening our entire journey towards getting deeper insights from
mhm. Such a great story. Uh,
them.
and we can talk to them like you did when they're sleeping or doing other things. They can do both, right?
Yes, yes. So let's understand the concept of telepathic communication effectively means we are connecting to the energy, and the energy will not be affected by physical restrictions. So, irrespective of whether they are playing, eating, sleeping, it does not matter because energetically they are able to transfer that information to us. And hence, they will not sit down and look at us and have that eye contact with us because that's not their way of communicating. You would usually not find them doing that because they don't put so much of emphasis on verbal communication. They will indulge in the conversations with us as we talk to them while doing their own thing. So many times when I'm speaking to my own animals, they'll just walk off, they'll go into the other room, and yet they'll be still speaking to me. And yet there are so many times when they will physically validate the communication as well. However, that shouldn't be a yardstick of whether or not we are communicating. Only because they are not physically validating it doesn't mean we are not communicating with them. I have spoken to my own dog. I lost one in March this year, 2020, and he passed away right in front of me. And I was speaking to him while he was passing away, and even just after he transitioned. So it genuinely doesn't matter what their physical condition is. We can have beautiful conversations with them, irrespective of what they're doing physically.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. One thing that I often come across is that we say that it's not about speaking through with your brain, with your thoughts and mind. It's almost like a heart connection.
Yes.
What does that actually mean? How does somebody communicate with a heart?
Uh, I personally feel in my personal practice, it really depends on person to person how they establish that connection.
Okay.
For me, it's more of a gut connection than a heart connection
Okay.
because I receive from my gut. The messages that I receive from my gut. And this, of course, I've learned over time that I'm receiving from my gut. It was not the first time I communicated, I just realized it. So for me, it's a gut to gut connection. And our body is a great communicator. Our body communicates with nature around us, and hence when the AC temperature is too low we feel cold, or when it's too warm we feel hot and we start sweating. So our body understands what's happening around us and within us. So when we receive a message, we if we just are a little aware of how we are receiving it, we will understand where we are receiving it and which part of the body we are receiving it. However, as far as heart to heart connection goes, I feel it's more to do with the compassion and love that we connect with each other rather than the physical location of the heart
Okay.
or the biological location of the heart. That would be my interpretation.
Yeah, I like that. It makes sense because I've heard it so often that people say that with the heart connection, and I'm never quite sure what they mean because I've tried it and it doesn't seem to do much for me. You know,
Yes.
but I think you're right. It's all very personal. Like you feel it in your gut, which is sort of like your intuition. And
Yes. Because I am claircognizant, so I receive it that way.
okay,
And for those who may be clairsentient, receive it from their heart. For those who are clairaudience, may receive it from their ears. So there's no one size fits all in animal communication, and there shouldn't be because it's such a beautiful personal practice. We are dealing with energy, and energy is so fluid and so malleable that we cannot put rules and restrictions on it.
yeah,
Whatever works for us works for us. We need to integrate that into our practice. Whatever doesn't, without judgments, we let it go without judging who is doing what. I learned from under 5 different communicators across the globe, and one of them, wonderful communicator, her way of communication was through meditation. 20 minutes of deep breathing and taking us into a trance and meditating. And it did not align to me. I am not someone, even right now when I'm talking to you, you'll see me moving so much. I can't sit still for
Oh
20
yeah.
minutes. And that just did not work with me. And a lot of people reach out to me and ask me, oh, do we need to meditate to do this? And well, meditation helps in everything. However, uh, it's your way of meditation. And that need not necessarily mean sitting down for 20 minutes and deep breathing and chanting. Your way of meditation or grounding could be taking a 10-minute walk on
Right.
grass, or just drawing or painting or drawing mandala art, or going for a jog or listening to a particular song. So we need to we really need to understand where our comfort zone lies and practice from that zone, and that's where the heart to heart connection will happen, because we are not forcing anything on us. We are just letting it flow very freely from us and receiving as well from them.
Yeah, it's almost, the heart is associated with the true you, your
Yes,
person, your love,
absolutely. Yes,
your authenticity, your genuine person.
yes,
And I think maybe that's what this means. It's
yes,
when you offer yourself truly to the
absolutely.
other, then you get what you want back.
I would absolutely agree. It's just you in all your wholesome self, in all your being, in all your awareness when you're communicating. That's for me a heart to heart communication, and it does not need to resonate with my biological heart and the animal's heart.
Great, I love that. Um, so everybody out there, we'll be taking some questions sometime soon. So if you do have any questions for Akshaya, then put them in the comments section below and we'll get to them. Do you have any other tips for them that you would wanted to cover before we get into some questions? Anything else you want
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So the first thing I would want all our viewers to do is, after the session, go and write an essay on your animal and just see the kind of things that you get. And when I say write an essay, actually do it the way we did it in school, with an introduction, body, and conclusion. In the introduction, begin with writing about their personality, how you think they are. Imagine them to be a human being, a being on their own with their own personality, and write a character sketch. In the body, write about things that their routine, their likes, their dislikes, how they're interacting with the other humans in the family, maybe also what role they have played in your family, in your life, ever since they've reached out to you. And then in the conclusion, you can just write about how you feel about having them in your life and what is your connection with them. And once you write this essay, make a note of when you were writing the essay, how did that information come to you? Was it coming to you in the form of visuals, that you were seeing your animal doing those things? Was it coming to you in the form of sentences? Were you hearing them? Was it in the form of smells? Could you smell your animal? Could you smell the food that you were talking about? Was it in the form of a feeling, that you were feeling the love, the joy of speaking to your animal? Or was it just a thought? No other senses associated, just a thought. Just make a note of it. And this is how you'll realize where your comfort zone lies as far as your senses are concerned.
Okay.
And now, step by step, every day, whatever you need to know from your animal, if just verbally speaking to them is not coming to you, write it down. Because writing serves two purposes. One is that you will not filter out any information because you're writing it as you receive it. And secondly, you will also allow your conscious mind to be involved in the motor skills of writing or typing, so it will not interfere with your subconscious mind receiving the information. And that is a great way to overcome the block of the conscious mind. So do this. If you're not able to just get that instant thing, if you feel that is something that's coming in your way with your animals, write things down. It serves as a great journal for you to even see where you started and where you have come after, say, a few days down the line.
That's great. I know some people even do communication through just writing.
Yes.
And I think that now that you mentioned that, that's probably why it stops your brain from thinking, because it's focus somewhere else instead of the
Yes.
actual thoughts. Interesting.
So
Okay.
this is one way that you can communicate. Another thing is accept communications as they come. A lot of people feel communication is when you initiate a conversation and then, like Josh and Akshaya are talking, question answer. That is how it is. It may not necessarily be. For me personally, I don't do a question answer communication. I find it. That's not my personal practice. So many times you're just sitting and your animal's thought comes to your head, and then something you just know something new about them. That too is a way of communication, and we all have experienced it. We just need to be next time on consciously aware and acknowledge that it's a communication and not just a straight thought that's coming to our head. So that is another way of communicating. So if writing is not working out, verbally speaking is not working out, just having these thoughts and acknowledging them as communications may work out for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point too, because about the question and answer, that's also setting yourself up for possibly failure, because it's
Yes.
you have these expectations. But sometimes I'll tell people, instead of expecting the answer, feel what the answer might be. So
Yes,
do
absolutely.
you want to eat this particular food? You ask your animal, and instead of hearing the answer, you might feel
Feel.
very positive feeling in your body, like, yes, that sounds good. You wouldn't hear it, but you might feel it, or you might feel, you don't want that, and it's just like a feeling. And so being open to all these different ways is really going to open you up to exactly how you communicate.
Absolutely. And this is known as the felt sense, because our body, of course, knows how to communicate. So, it's very easy for us to find it out also. So, you can just say a statement that is true. And when you say it, suppose if I say my dog's name is Tango, if I say I love you, Tango, feel it in your body. See where you feel it. So I usually feel it in my gut if I say a statement that's true. And then say the exact opposite statement that's false. So I say I hate you, Tango. I actually feel it in my heart because this is not a true statement and it hurts me. So this is how you can know your yardstick or benchmark of yes and no in your body. And then each time you ask your animal, you can actually check with your body, is it a yes or a no, or if it's mine or if it's the animals. This is another easy way to get your validation.
Yeah, and I would say, if you don't want to start with your animal with that exercise, it's a great exercise, start with yourself. You could even say,
Yes.
I love ice cream, and if you do, how does that feel in you? Because you definitely are going to feel something. And so start with that, and that's how it might be feeling when you start asking your animal things. And yeah, great.
So we just need to explore and understand where our comfort zone lies. I mean, we can sit here and talk about it all day long, and yet not everything is going to work for everyone. So each one will have to. It's a trial and error method where you understand what aligns to you, and that's how you work on it. Like I said, I cannot ask questions. So if suppose I want to know how the animal is feeling, I'll just think about the animal's health, and then I'll start writing down about what the animal is saying or speaking out what the animal is saying without actually posing a question to the animal. If that works, you use that.
Yeah, well, it seems like that there shouldn't really be a need for this structured conversation. It's all just a flow of information. You're just connecting to all of the information all at once. And yeah. Should we take some questions, or did you still have something? Okay.
We can take some.
Let's see. We've got people from all over the place here. Let me just see if anybody has any questions. Anybody out there have questions? Like I said, put them down below. Mostly just a lot of really great comments.
Thank you.
Like, she's the best teacher.
How sweet. Thank you.
And Tango says hi.
Hi.
Okay, here's one. So what exercise would you suggest in order to strengthen intuition? I've been trying for so long and never know what I really receive.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Lucinda. So again, I need to understand the reason why you would want to strengthen your intuition, because it may not necessarily be that you are receiving messages intuitively or through your intuition. There are other five senses where you can receive your messages from. So let's go back to the basic and just understand what you need to know from the animal and receive it in a way that you feel comfortable in receiving. So, like I said, begin with guesses. That's the easiest way, because there your conscious mind cannot say that no, you can't guess, because you've been taught from childhood that you can make a guess. That's been a game we have all played in our childhood. Or imagine what the animal is telling you, or make up what the animal wants to share with you. Just get an answer, and when you're doing it with someone else's, you can actually get your validations. While with your own animals, begin with very small things, like ask them how they're feeling in the morning, or when you take them for a walk, if you have a dog, ask them which way would you like to go today, and then take them that way. And these simple things will also help you gain validation, but at the same time, they're not too big to get you scared or under pressure and hence not receive any messages.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So you're basically saying back off from thinking that intuition is the way to go. Is
the only way to go. Yes,
yeah,
it's not the only way to go. Look at it as something that you are receiving all the time. So, for example, when you ask yourself, "What would I like to eat today?" and you get an answer, you may not necessarily get it intuitively, but you will get it through our sensory perceptions, one of our five senses. In just a similar manner, when you ask an animal, "What would you like to eat today?" you may get the answer from one of the sensory perceptions, and that may not necessarily be your intuition.
Okay, got it. That's yeah, I've never actually heard that in that way. So it's really helpful to hear, because you just keep hearing intuition. That's the only way, but it's not, like you said. Great, thank you. Okay. Divya says, I would like to know how to communicate with a pet that has passed away. Is it the same way? And how soon after passing? I think you answered a lot of that already, but let's,
you can communicate with absolutely any energy. It doesn't matter when they have passed and how long it has been, or whether they are reincarnated or not, because they are connecting to the energy. So you can most definitely communicate with animals who have passed away as well.
Yeah, and like you said, with your own dog,
yes, yes.
The communication didn't stop.
No.
Depending on her state.
Yes.
Should I read that, or?
Yes, my pet Zara.
My pet Zara.
Very happy, sobbing, not eating. I want to reach out to her, but don't know how to communicate. Give her comfort. Okay, so let's understand again as to when we say that I don't know how to communicate. It's because we look at telepathic communication and human communication as two different things. Let's start with the concept that it's communication. Whether I'm speaking with Josh over this app, or whether I'm speaking to my husband who sits right beside me, or whether I'm speaking to an animal, it's communication. It's the same principle that's applied everywhere. So if you wish to comfort your dog, all you need to do is feel that comfort, feel that intention of wanting to comfort her, and talk in whatever way you feel you're going to comfort her. You can do that. It may not even be talking. Communication can be touch based. That touch is the greatest form of communication known to us. A baby stops crying when it's picked up by one of their parents or whoever. So you can even communicate with your touch, and with your touch, your thoughts will be transferred to your animal, and they'll know that you're providing them comfort. They'll know you're there for them. So just feel it and do it in a way that you feel is the best way you can transfer it to them. And they will show you in one way or the other that they are really grateful that you're there around them in a difficult time like your dog is going through.
That's great. Yeah, it's not always the comfort that we think we want.
Yes.
what works for them. And I think she probably knows how to do it and just has to let go and intuit how to do it. So Maria says, what happens if one is not an organized person? My first intention is always to follow an introduction, body, conclusion type of communication. Eventually, I start jumping from one question to another, which makes me feel upset.
Don't feel upset. That's the way you do it. It doesn't matter at all. You don't need to follow introduction, body, conclusion. And if you feel you want to follow that and then you change into jumping from question to question, that's fine too. It's so much fun. Look at it that way. You know, you can do so many things together. Why do you want to put yourself in a spot where you decide for yourself that this is the way I want? Is the animal asking that of you? Absolutely not. The animal is happy to answer you irrespective of how you're asking them the question. So set an intention that you are going to lower your inhibitions about the communication and let it flow. If you want to do introduction, body, conclusion, great. If you want to begin with that and go to somewhere else, that's great too, as long as the animal talks to you. They are not going to hold it against you. They'll have fun with you like that.
Yeah, you see so many different styles out there.
Yeah.
You could be a person who's very logical and very like an accountant who loves to have things in order. And then you can have a really creative person and their approach is always similar to Maria's, where it's whatever comes through your head at the moment, that's what works. They're all over the place, but it works for them, and go with that style. That's your style.
Absolutely. And I feel that this for Maria is a better style because it is full of the feminine energy. You know, it is full of a free flowing energy, whereas structure is full of with masculine energy. So when we are speaking of intuition, when we are speaking of free flowing conversations, when we are speaking of nature, there's a lot of feminine energy flowing, and that's what's happening with you. So don't try to structure it, just let it flow.
Great. How much time daily should we invest in communication?
It's completely up to you. There again, the more you set a timetable that okay, 6 to 7:30 I'm going to do this, in all likelihood the more averted you're going to be to do it. So whenever you can communicate, and you don't need to be in a place or in a certain state to communicate. You can communicate when you're having a shower and your animal is outside. You can communicate as you cook and you're having a two-way conversation with another animal. You can communicate when you're traveling. So there's absolutely no restrictions to when and how you can communicate, and hence it's up to you. I can communicate the whole day with humans and animals. So I cannot tell you how much you should do it, for how long you should do it.
Yeah, you know, if you ask that question, or if a baby asks that question, how much time should I invest in trying to speak?
Learning a new language, yes.
You wouldn't ask that. A baby would never ask that. It's always you're interacting with your world around you, and it's not a specific time. Okay, now I'm gonna practice speaking. It's all the time.
And this also comes in from the intention that I want to get better, or I want to get good validations, and I want to get good communications. If we just set our intentions to enjoy the communication, then there is no choice but to do it always, because we genuinely find so much joy in doing it. We are doing it for ourselves, and we are doing it for our animals, and for no other external validation. So
Right.
if you put in that intention, you will just do it at all times. There'll be no stopping you at all.
Yep. Okay. How about this one? If you've communicated with a lot of animals, do you feel tired or drained? And if yes, how do you deal with the burnout?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking. So when we speak of animal communication, I get a lot of queries from people, or I even get people who have done animal communication and come and tell me, oh, I feel extremely drained after a communication. In my personal practice, I genuinely feel that animal communication cannot drain you out, because it's a two-way conversation. Just the way Josh and I are speaking right now, we both are willingly a part of this. Nobody is forcing us to say anything or do anything. Just that way, when we speak to animals, we are both consenting to that conversation, and it's just like speaking. So energetically, nothing gets sucked out of us. We are not channeling anything through us for anything to get sucked out. We are just receiving and sending, and not using our own, so to say, universal life force or energy to receive and send. And therefore, personally, I have not felt drained out because of the communication. For people who do feel drained after a communication, there could be various reasons for it. One being their own involvement into it. So, for example, if my friend calls me up and tells me a very sad story about an accident that they met with, and if I'm really attached to that friend, I may tend to feel bad about it, and I may tend to feel drained out after that conversation. And that's because I am emotionally involved in there. However, the communication per se would not really drain us out, and therefore setting that intention right, that we are a hollow bone, we are a medium, really helps in avoiding that draining of energy when we communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this really ties into everything that you've been saying, is that if you're going to be thinking that this is going to be a chore, or you have to set aside
Yes.
time to do it, and you put all this pressure on yourself, yes, that will drain you.
Yes.
It will.
Yes.
But if you just look at it like it's communicating with the world around you, it's natural, it's going to happen whether you try or not, and have fun, it won't drain you at all. It's just going to be part of your day.
And it also, I think, depends on our personalities. So, for example, if you're going to sit and write things down, for someone who is not fond of writing, may get drained out after 2 communications because I get tired. Or for a professional communicator, like for professional communicators like us, maybe 3 calls of 1 hour each can tire us out.
Right.
I am personally someone who can talk through the day. So even if I go 8 hours straight of communication, even on phone calls, it doesn't drain me out because that's just the way I am. But I know of people who can't speak on the phone for more than 2 minutes. So if they try to do this the way I do it, then it's going to drain them out.
Yeah.
So the communication per se will not drain us or tire us. It's just the way we do it, depending on our personality, that can lead to the draining or the burning out.
Yeah. So again, listen to your own personal style, and
yes,
that will tell you which way is the best way for you. So do we always have to practice grounding before communicating, even simple questions?
Thank you for asking this question. This is something that I drill into my students, that grounding is a tool for us to just stay connected with ourselves and nature around us. It's not a mandatory thing that we need to do before every communication. For example, even when I came for this live, I would want to ground myself ideally so that I'm not distracted by anything else when I'm speaking to Josh. So it's not restricted to telepathic communication. And grounding for us humans, we look at grounding as something that we need to take time aside and do this for 20 minutes and then we feel grounded. But if we notice the entirety of nature, they have small things in their routine that help them ground. For example, when you see a cat stretching so beautifully with their tail up, that's grounding for them. Or when animals go round and round and round before they sleep, that's grounding for them because they're in the moment. And the entirety of nature is always in the moment. You would barely find a dog having his meal and thinking about, what did I have yesterday? Was it better, or this is better? What will I get tomorrow? They don't. They just focus on the meal. And that's when you see your animals using the washroom. They're so focused on releasing themselves. They come out so happy, like, yay, I achieved something. I actually released myself. That's because they're grounded. So what we need to do is we need to find activities that help us ground and do it consistently in our routine, rather than look at it as a standalone activity that needs to be done before communication. And this could be anything. It could be having a shower because, water is cleansing. You're there without your clothes. There are no inhibitions, and that can be grounding for you. Reading a book can be grounding for you. Taking a walk in the park can be grounding for you. So find what grounds you, or even setting an intention. Then in this breath that I'm going to take, I'm going to be grounded, can be grounding for you. So have these activities added to your day regularly rather than just doing it only before you communicate. And don't put yourself into the habit of grounding every time you communicate, because then that again makes it extremely tedious. If I have to ground before every time I speak to my animal, I'll only be grounding. I won't be doing anything else.
Yes, true. Yeah, that's similar to, I know a lot of people say you have to call in protection, energetic protection whenever you do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing. It's an extra step that may not be necessary for you. If you feel like it is, then go for it. But
yes. If it works for you, excellent. But if not, you can completely let go of it or just integrate it into your intention. That's it. Right. When you set your intention, just integrate it that you will be grounded and that you're calling for protection or whatever it is that you feel is necessary. Like for me, it's just become a norm now that every time that I even decide to do a professional consult, I feel grounded instantly. I don't need to do anything to ground myself. In fact, there's a funny story that a few months ago, I did a 10-day doodling workshop with an intention to do something else other than communication. And in one day, I was doing the homework for the doodling workshop, and I got so stressed with the homework that I actually took a break from doodling. I did a professional communication, and then I went back to doodling. My husband is like, "You are actually working to take a break from taking a break of the doodling activity." So it really depends on what grounds you, and that is all that you need to do.
That's so great. I love that. There's a second part of this question. Do we have to introduce ourselves each time to our own animal?
No, absolutely not. Your animal knows you and you know your animal. And not just with our own animals. I have spoken to so many animals who are my repeat clients. I don't need to introduce myself to them. In fact, so many times they remind me, oh, we have already spoken. Don't you remember? I told you this and I told you that. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I've spoken to so many. I must have forgotten. But yes, now that you remind me, I do remember this conversation.
Yeah.
So no, you don't need to introduce yourself.
I'll show up in a conversation and they'll already be waiting for me. They know who I am. I don't even have to say anything.
They will also know why you're there, as to what the human wants to know. And without you asking a question, they just take charge of the communication and they've told you everything the human wants to know and more because they know. And they just want the human to know about it as well.
Yeah, that's great. When I communicate with my community animals and later I meet them when I go for a walk, do they know it's me who has communicated with them?
Yes, absolutely. They know it's you. They may or may not respond to it in a way that you expect for them to respond. Suppose if they are timid dogs or if they are dogs who are not very human friendly, they're completely feral, they may not come to you wagging their tails and lick you on your face, but they definitely know that you have spoken to them.
How do you deal with conversations with animals who have a very painful, traumatic history to share? It's difficult not to feel emotional, and you can feel drained and sad and helpless.
I think one of the most important things that animal communication has taught me is the difference of perception and the importance of free will. So when I look at an animal who has had a painful past or a traumatic past, I need to acknowledge it myself that it looks painful and traumatic to me. From their experience, it can be completely different. For example, Tango, my dog, came to me at the age of 9. He was locked up in a balcony for about a month and a half without food, with very little food and water. His other companion dog had died over there, and that's how they rescued him. They could not save him, and that's how he has come to me as a foster. And then he was a foster fail, and he decided to stay back. Now, for me, it's such a traumatic time that he went through over there. However, when I speak to him, he tells me in a very, very cool tone, he will tell me that that was a part of my journey. And that was an equally important part of my journey to come to you, because you are the next part of my soul's purpose and my contract. So the acknowledgement that their perception of pain, death, trauma is completely different from ours is the key to remaining neutral when we speak to them. Also, we need to understand that since they are grounded, they have abilities that we all have. However, they use it more consciously than us. I have spoken to several animals, including my own, who are in a very horrible physical situation, and yet they tell me we are not in pain because we have disconnected from our physical bodies. And that is an ability we all have. We all do that. So many of us we'll just hit ourselves somewhere, and 2 days later we see the bruise and we realize, oh my God, yeah, I had it myself. In fact, for all the Marvel Comics fans here, Jack Kirby, when he wrote about the Hulk, He actually witnessed a woman picking up a car because there was an accident and the baby was stuck inside the car. And that's where the ideation of the Hulk happened. Now, that woman doesn't know where she got the strength from, but when she was pushed into the circumstance where she had to save her child, she did that. She picked up a car. So we all have this ability. It's just that some people, since animals are grounded, they use it, and hence they are consciously using it, while we are doing it at a subconscious level. So we need to differentiate between our perception of pain, trauma, suffering, and understand their perception of the same. And you will be surprised to know that at most times they'll only teach you about love, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness, even in the pain and trauma that they're going through.
Yeah. This next question I think is maybe similar. How to deal with anxiety.
That is sick. I think we put too much of focus in being not anxious and not scared and not this and not that. We are humans. We are all allowed to have these emotions. For example, if my mother is unwell, I'm going to have the same kind of anxiety as I would with my animal. Does that mean I won't speak to my mother when I speak to her and ask her what she needs from me? Not really. Even in that anxiety, I am able to speak to them. So it's okay if you're feeling anxious in that time. What is required is that you acknowledge your anxiety, take a few deep breaths, calm down, understand what is more important. What is more important in that point when your animal is unwell? Is it more important for you to be anxious and scared? Is that going to help you? Or is it more important that you are a little calmer so that you can at least initiate a conversation with your animal? Is that going to help you? And when you see what your priorities are and then you prioritize, it becomes very easy to break through our anxiety and prioritize their well-being over what we need in that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. All right, let's take one last question here.
Sure.
It's very difficult to speak to an animal who is transitioning. Is there a way we can separate our emotions and communicate with them?
Yes, again, going back to basics, understand the perception of the animal is different. Death for humans is a very different ball game as compared to nature at large. For us, it's the end of everything. For them, it's a part of the journey.
Yes.
They celebrate death. I've spoken to animals who will greet death like an old friend because they understand that their physical body is unable to take whatever is happening, and hence they need to drop their physical bodies. So once we allow this perception to come to us, we understand that, and then we speak to them, it becomes easier for us to give them what they may require when they are transitioning, rather than pushing our narratives on them that, oh my God, something horrible is happening. It's not horrible. I saw my own dog die a few months ago, and I genuinely can tell you that that was one of the most beautiful moments I've experienced, to see him just transition so beautifully, and he was in so much control of the situation that in a lot of ways he took away my fear of death because I saw him die.
Wow.
And if you just allow that to happen to you, you will be surprised with the kind of wisdom that they can bring to you in their transition and in their dying also.
That's beautiful. That's such a great way to look at it. And I hope we can all get to that perspective, that it would solve a lot of issues that we have.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to say you have some classes, ongoing things that you can, if somebody wants to continue learning after this webinar, what do you have available on a regular basis for people to learn?
So I have just transitioned from one-to-one mentoring to now recorded videos, and then they are divided into sections. And then once they have finished one section, they can book a call with me, and then a Q&A happens about whatever is discussed in that section. So that will be up in the next week. The website you've already mentioned, so they can look up for all the information there. Apart from that, I also conduct smaller 5-day boot camps where we just do introduction to animal communication to kickstart their journey so that they can experience what it is and then decide how they want to take their journey ahead. All of that information is available on my Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/animal communication by Akshaya. So if anybody is interested in enrolling in any of the courses I offer, by all means they can. Everything is available on my socials. And of course, I have a YouTube channel too, which is Animal Communication by Akshaya. And if you don't intend on enrolling in courses, a lot of free resources are available there as well.
Yeah, and on your Facebook page, you've got lots of great videos and tips and everything to start somebody off. And that's the most important part of this whole journey, is the beginning, where you just become aware that it's possible, and then everything flows from there.
And absolutely, yes.
Well, thank you again, Akshaya. This has been such a great, enlightening conversation, and it's such a great start for a lot of people to learn all this, and a lot of our fears are just kind of dissipated because you're able to explain all these things in such a great way, and to alleviate all these fears by saying, no, instead of that, let's do this, and kind of funnel everything into a positive way. So thank you so much for all the insight.
Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful. And I really hope that all our audience are now going to start talking to their animals without thinking about right or wrong. Just speak. Yes. That is all that you need to know. Speak and allow your animals to guide you further.
That's exactly it. And that's the homework for today. If this is part of the 7-day interspecies communication practice challenge, your homework is to just start speaking with the animals in your life. It can be in your head, it can be out loud, but
it could be written, anything, just anyway, but start. Start.
And just part of your normal life. You're walking through the room. Hello, that's it.
Yes.
And also, I want to say this whole series is part of a celebration of the first ever World Interspecies Communication Month. It happens all October, and it will happen every year after this. Every October, we'll celebrate this magical world that we live in, where we all can speak to each other. And this is just sort of letting us be aware that it's possible, that we can really speak with not only the animals in our lives, but the trees and the nature elements and the spirits and the angels and whatever else you'd like to speak with. It's all the same. It's all in the field, and all accessible to us. So tune in for the rest of this week, and you'll hear more on this topic and different perspectives. But loved having you here, Akshaya. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.